What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and if you're looking to make moves to better your fantasy football team, this is the video for you because today we are going to talk about my 6 must buy and sell trade targets for week 10 of the fantasy football season. This is a video we haven't done all year, where in the past we used to do the buys and sells in the same video. This year we've been doing some buys, some sells, some players skyrocketing up rest of season rankings, but today, I will say I was going to do separate videos, but I had to take my dog to the vet. She's fine. It just kind of derailed getting a video out yesterday. So we have 3 players I'm looking to buy, 3 players I'm looking to sell before week 10 ends here. Some of these buys are for contenders that have the luxury of buying players on buy or players that could be good down the stretch. And some of these are you scrambling and you need players right now? And then some players to ship off on the other side of that. As always, if you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. And the way we do these videos is every Tuesday night, I put out my rest of season rankings over on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. You'll find that in the description and the comment section down below. I look across the industry-wide rest of season rankings, and I say, what sticks out? Or just who are players that I think I would be looking to buy low, sell high, everything in between. And the first player that comes to mind is Ladd McConkey. Can you buy Ladd McConkey for a reasonable price? He's been up and down all year. He has been somebody that was very frustrating early on, and then he kind of bounced back out of nowhere. Well, actually, it wasn't out of nowhere. It was when Quentin Johnson got hurt. He's been pretty decent since then, but there is kind of this notion with the Chargers that there are a lot of mouths to feed, right? You have Ladd McConkey, you have Quentin Johnson, you have Keenan Allen, you have Oronde Gadsden, but Justin Herbert, I think, is the man for the job to keep people well fed. And for me, by my money, I would have Ladd McConkey as the number 1 option in this passing game moving forward. And I think right now would be a decent time to buy low because it was his first time under 10 PPR points versus the Titans since week 4. Now, that was just a weird game script where the Titans didn't really push them. Yes, they got the weird fluky special teams touchdown. They got the weird fluky pick 6 as well. So they pushed them a little bit, but it just wasn't a game where they had to really win through the air. They kind of just played good defense, good football, and that's all they really needed. Yeah, Justin Herbert passed for 250 yards. Justin Herbert actually kind of willed them on the ground with 57 yards rushing, a touchdown rushing as well. Now, when we talk about Ladd McConkey over the last 3 weeks, so just like what he's been doing recently, he is the wide receiver 12 in expected points per game. That is his usage, his volume, based on his targets, his ADOT, his red zone usage. He should be the wide receiver 12. Instead, he's the wide receiver 17. That's not like a crazy drop-off, but he has been getting peppered. He has been getting the usage of a top 12 guy. He just hasn't made good on that usage just yet. But this is a great matchup versus the Steelers. He is the wide receiver 10 by consensus heading into this week, and pretty much a smash spot, if you ask me. Currently, the Steelers are allowing the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. And then on top of that, if you buy Ladd McConkey now, next week he plays against the Jaguars, who are allowing the 12th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Now, what I will say, after those 2 games, he does go on bye, so just keep that in mind. But I think he's a great, get him for this week, he's going to have a great game. Get him for the week after, he'll be fine. And then after his bye week, he should be a mid to high-end wide receiver 2 the rest of the way. Now, what can you buy Ladd McConkey for? This is where we go to the trade database over on fantasycalc.com, where it takes into account real trades from real fantasy football leagues across the board. We will go with redraft leagues, 1 quarterback, 2 to 3 assets in the deal. We'll go 10 to 14 teams, half and full PPR. Tell me Ladd McConkey is not that expensive, please. Please. This is about even. Warren and Ladd, I would say, are equal in value. Just comes down to what you need positionally. Of course, if you can take a quarterback and Kamani Vidal to get Ladd, I would. Would I add Dobbs and Sutton for Ladd? I would, but I'm lower on Sutton than most. He's like a sneaky sell, but he hasn't been good enough to sell Courtland Sutton. Devontae Smith and Justin Herbert. No, I'd have Devontae Smith and Ladd kind of in similar areas. I would trade ETN for Ladd if I didn't need a running back in ETN here. I will say Rico Dowdle's not a sell. Like, don't do anything like this. I love Ladd, but like I'm not really trying to move off of Rico Dowdle unless if you give me like a true like holy shit, I can't turn that offer down. Does anything else stick out? Not really. Not really. Would I do Drake London for Bucky Irving and Ladd McConkey? Honestly, no, just given that we don't have enough info on Bucky Irving right now for me to feel comfortable making that move. Can we find one more? Trey Tucker and Hampton. I mean, like, this is what the trade calc has this like pretty much even. So I don't know. If you want to wait around for Hampton, sure, but if you don't have time to wait for Hampton, if you could take Hampton and sell somebody on the dream of Trey Tucker now that Jakobi Meyers is gone, that is beautiful. All right, let's move on to our next buy candidate here, Breece Hall. I feel like I do want to kind of walk back what I said on the waiver wire show. And the reason why I had Breece Hall as a buy is because the vibes around him are awful. He made it very public on Twitter during the trade deadline. Trade me. I want out. Let me go to the Chiefs. And here's where I have now changed. I think, first of all, everybody is now kind of lower on Breece. He was very outwardly spoken. Is he now going to kind of quiet quit on this team, right? And that was something I talked about. Roster Isaiah Davis in case if Breece Hall picks up a hamstring injury and sits out the rest of the year. But here's why I'll walk that back and why I actually think I was wrong. My read on the situation right now is Breece Hall's in a contract year, which is really important to understand. He's in a contract year. This offseason is his payday. This trade deadline was a feeler of what his value around the league is, and it was not a third-round pick, which is fair. There's not many NFL running backs that are worth a third-round pick. NFL running backs are all a dime a dozen, but even more so, that matters to Breece Hall, who needs a big payday. This is the end of his rookie contract. He is going into free agency, and he needs to get paid, or he wants to get paid. So it's not in his best interest to quiet quit because he needs to finish this strong, whether it's for a Jets new deal or if it's for a contract with another team. He needs to do well these next 5 or so games or whatever it is to close out the year because this is his audition. Can he finish strong? Can he make a Pro Bowl? Can he do anything among those lines? So it's now time to, put food on the table. So I think that his team has kind of told him, and when I say team, I say agent, management, whatever, has told him to walk back everything. He said, I love the coaching staff. I love what Aaron Glenn is doing. So at the end of the day, I'm worried about showing up on Sundays and being a good dude to my teammates. Now, that is hilarious after he's pretty much begging to get traded on Tuesday. But I now think that he's just going to play the rest of the year to the best of his ability. So if there is any doubt about Breece Hall of, oh, man, I don't know if he's going to finish out this year. Could they just shut him down? I think that he understands what's at stake here at this point. So, again, I don't really apologize because I still think Isaiah Davis is a great ad just to pick up and see what happens. But the idea of quiet quitting or anything like that, I think is kind of I think it's the wrong idea. Now, he does have 2 bad matchups. He has Cleveland this week and then New England. But down the stretch, he does have a game against Baltimore, Miami, and New Orleans. So those are all still on the schedule. I'm high on Breece. He's been great this year in terms of efficiency, explosive playmaking, and coming out of the Cincinnati game, coming out of this bye week with the trade deadline, I do think the vibes are kind of high around the Jets and the Jets offense, and this defense being even worse just means we're going to get not like shootouts, but maybe more PPR usage for Breece Hall. Regardless, he's still a fine RB2, and if you can buy low because you need running back production, I think that he is a fine trade candidate. Now, when we look at what is Breece going for? Is there kind of a fire sale going on? I don't think so, but I've just seen him as a popular. I've seen him as like a popular sell. Like, he's going to be bad the rest of the year. He's going to quit on his team. Again, I just don't really believe that. Yeah, like Devontae Smith straight up easily. Pittman straight up, yeah. Sutton straight up, yeah. Pickens straight up. This one's closer, but yeah. Would I do? I prefer Breece to Warren, but they're in the same tier for me. Olave for Breece easily. So you get what I'm saying. Like, there's Bucky for Breece, I would do that. Or actually, I would need more talk on the injury, but I would only, this is what I'm saying, I wouldn't do it in a vacuum, but if I had Bucky Irving on my team, burning a hole in my pocket, and I'm like 3-6, and I really need to win right now, I would sell Bucky for Breece. So those are some good options. Like, you can get him for pretty cheap right now again. I just don't think it's in his best interest to kind of quiet quit or whatever, despite that being my gut reaction on Tuesday. Then our final buy for the video is Chase Brown. I always love buying low on players who are on their bye week. Chase Brown goes into his bye week riding high, where he now has strung together like a 4-game stretch of being, a 3-game stretch of versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, he had 100-plus rushing yards. Then he had a 25-point game against the Jets, and then a 19-point game against the Bears. Now, of course, Pittsburgh, Jets, Chicago are all bad defenses, but he comes out of the bye. He gets Pittsburgh. New England's a good defense, but then he gets Baltimore, Buffalo, Baltimore, Miami, Arizona. It's a really nice schedule down the stretch where his last 5 games of the season are against Baltimore, Buffalo, Baltimore, Miami, Arizona. Those teams are allowing the 4th, 7th, 4th, 6th, and 18th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Samaje Perine has a high ankle sprain. And if we look at just kind of the environment that these Bengals games led themselves to, it's really good for fantasy football. They are averaging in Joe Flacco starts in terms of points allowed and points scored, a total of 68.8 total points. In a given week, the highest over-under will be like 53.5, 54.5. So not that you can project the Bengals to score 68 every single week in terms of points allowed and points forward, but the environments are there. It seems like every week the Bengals kind of lull the other team into a crazy shootout, and that's really good for fantasy football. Now, we can also see with Samaje Perine's high ankle sprain that Chase Brown's usage has been really good as well. His final week in Week 9, he had a 93 utilization score. This is from FantasyLife.com. They have a really cool tool where you can look at the snap share, rush attempt share, and he was bonkers across the board with one of the craziest high usage, workhorse, bell cow type roles that we can really remember for Chase Brown. Over 90% of the snaps, about 80% of the rushes, 86% of the routes, just across the board, everything you want to see. So if I could buy him while he's on bye, I love that. Now, a running back I'd be looking to sell is Travis Etienne. He seems like a sell every other week for us on these trade target videos, but when Travis Etienne comes off a good game, I like him as a sell. He's coming off pretty much his first game over 10 PPR points since week 4, and even in this game, he had 22 carries for 84 yards. He had 5 catches, 31 yards, no touchdowns. He's fine, but he's just fine, and his role isn't that great. He has Basil Tutin behind him, and they love using Trevor Lawrence on the goal line as well. Trevor Lawrence had 2 rushing touchdowns in this game. And over his final 4 games, Travis Etienne is going to have the Colts, the Jets, the Broncos, the Colts. These teams are allowing the 25th, 8th, 26th, and 25th most points to opposing running backs. So yes, he will get the Jets for one of those games, but his final 3 of 4 games are against teams ranking outside the top 25 in points allowed to opposing running backs. Can you kind of sell? It's not even like Etienne had an amazing performance, but he had a pretty solid game. Are people ponying up for Travis Etienne here? Oh yeah, Travis Etienne, and they're saying Fantasy Calc has this side winning Etienne, and I just said buy Chase Brown, but if you can turn Etienne and Chase Brown into Emeka Egbuka easily, no thank you. Bo Nix and Etienne for Nico Collins, sure. Nico Collins almost made it as a buy candidate. He's just been so disappointing this year, but I do think if CJ Stroud wasn't banged up, I'd be a little more open to it, but Nico Collins is like a lowercase buy candidate for me. If you want to add him in for this video, yeah, like Sutton and Etienne to get London. Etienne traded for Addison, probably not. Etienne for Tet is even. I would send Etienne for Ladd. Etienne for Tyler Warren, I'd probably do as well. So you can see Etienne goes. I mean, running backs are a premium, and if Etienne isn't, if he's just like a flex option for you because you have 2 stud running backs, you can easily sell Etienne. If you want to sell some wide receivers, we have Chris Olave, who I've loved Chris Olave the entire year, but I think it's a mixture of 2 things I like here as a sell for Olave. First, Rashid Shaheed getting traded is this like perceived upgrade for him, I would imagine, of, Chris Olave is now the set and forget number 1 in this offense. Rashid Shaheed is gone. Well, the issue for Olave has never been volume. He's been peppered like a number 1 the entire year. So that's not a positive to me that Rashid Shaheed is gone. He's now going to take a lot of the speed element away from this offense. He's going to take a lot of the coverage that went towards Rashid Shaheed is now going to go towards Olave. And I think really the biggest thing here is the Tyler Shuck from Spencer Rattler, to me, downgrade. I know that they, from a team building standpoint, they have to see what they have in Tyler Shuck. So I understand the move, but Rattler looked pretty good. Rattler only had 2 games under 200 passing yards this year. Shuck had 176 yards in his debut. Now, it could get better, but if it doesn't, and this is a Dylan Gabriel type, like this guy literally just can't play, then all of a sudden, Chris Olave becomes Jerry Jeudy in this situation. I don't think it's going to get that dire, but it's just tough. And then on top of that, he gets the Panthers this week, who allow the 27th most points to opposing wide receivers, and then a bye week. So in the short term, I don't think you're really going to get much from Chris Olave. I don't want to rely on Tyler Shucks, number 1 wide receiver for the fantasy playoffs. So if I could get out of the Chris Olave business, I think I would. I'd go knocking around for, again, we talked about Ladd McConkey, but somebody like George Pickens, who's on bye, I think is a good candidate. We talked about Nico Collins in this video. So we have six dedicated trade targets here, but we're kind of throwing other ideas around as well. But in terms of Chris Olave, would I sell him for? It's actually funny. We're about to talk about Marv as a sell candidate, but I would prefer Marv to Olave rest of season. No. What could we do? Olave and Woody Marks for Devontae Smith? No. All right, people aren't really caping up much for Olave. Olave and Mark Andrews for Rome, I would do. Olave for Brian Thomas and Rashad White. Probably not. Olave and Jacoby Myers for Chase Brown, yes. Olave and Pollard for Zay Flowers, I would do that. Olave for Ricky Pearsall and Tedero McMillan, yeah. Olave for George Kittle, easily. Okay, so not too bad, not too bad. Olave and Loveland for McBride, easily. So not too bad, not too bad. It looked rough at first, but not too bad. And then our final sell candidate is Marvin Harrison Jr., and I hate to say it, because it looks like the breakout is here, and I understand selling yourself on that dream, right, that this is finally him getting unlocked. He has Jacoby Brissett. He has this coordinator now, not promising, but saying that he's going to, or that he did in the last game of featuring Marvin Harrison Jr. in the opening game script. That's huge, and he's going to be more of a focal point, but we also have to understand that we now have 3 Jacoby Brissett starts, and in those 3 starts, Marvin Harrison has been 11.9 points per game as the wide receiver 34. His volume over that stretch has been the wide receiver 32. Maybe things change now going forward with Brissett, but again, in the previous 2 Brissett games, Marvin Harrison Jr. wasn't really that great. So I would just say if you could sell now, like I just think there's a lot of positive momentum with Jacoby Brissett, with that quote that he got used in the opening game script. And if I could just sell on that, I think I would. His final 5 games this season are against Tampa Bay, the Rams, Houston, Atlanta, and Cincinnati. Those teams are allowing the 21st, 17th, 29th, 26th, and 16th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Let's see what he is going for on the trade market. Again, I think that his value is pretty high right now. I do. He's got to be in like the wide receiver 20 area. Would I add Goddard to get AJ Brown? I would. Would I do Marv? No, I would not. Marv or Metcalf and Henderson, I would. I just have Metcalf and Marv in the same tier, so if I could net Henderson, I would. No. Marvin Harrison, no, sir. I'm not trying to buy Amari and Hampton, by the way. I would take Odunze straight up over Marv, but it's not a crazy upgrade. Would I do Marv for Laporta and Marks? No. Marv and Dobbins for Ibuka, easily. Marv for Ladd and I have Ladd ahead of Marv, so. And then we'll find one more. Let's find one more for Marv. Marv and Gentry for Lamb, easily. Marv for Tet and Kamara. I would do that as well. So you can sell Marv a little bit high after his big game in a primetime spot, which I feel like is a good time to move off of these players. But that's going to do it for us today. That is our must buy and sell trade targets for week 10 of the fantasy football season. The season is flying by again. If you want access to the rest of the season rankings, so if you have Marvin Harrison Jr. and somebody offers you Brian Thomas, you can check my rest of the season rankings and see who I have ahead for your trades this week over on patreon.com/Ron Stewart. You can find that in the description and the comment section down below. But you can't support there or you're already signed up, just leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you guys in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm